Okay, now they say we have to move with the times, but the more we progress, the more dangerous things seem to become. Concerns have now been raised over the use of artificial intelligence to scam and rob innocent people of their money. The latest trick being used by scammers is called a deepfake. This is when AI is used to clone the voices of other people in order to commit fraud by tricking people into believing they are dealing with the right individuals. Mimecast Regional VP of Sales Engineering, Brian Pinnock, joins us now to tell us more. Brian, good afternoon. Welcome to today. I guess it was bound to happen that the more we use AI in terms of our life nowadays, there will be those who are misusing it for crime. What are the biggest crimes you are seeing or have been seen when it comes to AI being used to create voice clones or deepfakes?
So yes, thanks for having me on. Yes, I think we've seen some fairly harmless examples of deepfakes. I mean, we've seen Pope Francis in a puffy jacket, and I think it's fairly obvious that those are not the kind of clothes that he would obviously wear. And we've seen pictures of Joe Biden dancing with Vladimir Putin. I think those are quite easy to determine those are not real. Unfortunately, what we're starting to see is an increase in both disinformation as well as cyber fraud and extortion. And there's numerous examples that actually go back quite a way, but we're starting to see them more and more. And we're starting to pick these things up in our email security tools, particularly, but in all kinds of places. And I mean, these things happen to individuals, and they also particularly happen to companies. We're seeing a lot of CEO fraud starting to happen. And it really is just a variation on a common theme, but it's very, very hard to pick up. What we're starting to see now are the voice of someone very senior in an organization, whatever that organization may be, and it seems to be that person's voice, although it's a fake, asking them to transfer money or do something. And we're starting to see an increase in those kinds of things.
Yeah, but there's an example that you've mentioned in another report involving a young girl's voice, and that was used demanding a ransom from her mother.
That's correct, yes. There was actually a relatively recent example where a criminal actually used deepfake audio in what's called a voice phishing attack. And what he did is he cloned the young girl's voice. There actually was no kidnapping. The young girl was safe the entire time, but unknown, this wasn't known to the mother. And the criminal actually demanded a ransom, and the mother nearly actually paid the ransom. This is something that happened in the USA very recently. The audio was so convincing that the mother was ready to pay the ransom until a friend actually called to say that the girl was actually safely at home. Yeah. And we've seen similar, probably less dramatic things. That's obviously highly emotional and very, very charged. Yes. But we've seen much less dramatic things with CEOs' voices and CFOs' voices and those kind of things being used. And it's very, very compelling because it sounds just like the real person.
You know what's scary about this, Brian, is many of us today, including myself, we live on platforms like LinkedIn, like Instagram, and Twitter, and we post videos. Just the other day, I posted a video promoting our program here on eNCA, We the Nation, which airs on a Sunday night at 8 p.m. So my voice, just using myself as an example, is available on all these kind of platforms. These criminals will go to those extent, and many companies as well, like eNCA and other organizations, have got websites where there's audio-visual material about themselves and their CEOs talking and leaders, and I mean prominent people, actors and actresses, musicians and all sorts. So it's so easy for them to scrape around the web and find stuff that they could put together and use in a deepfake.
This is exactly the problem. It's this digital manipulation using artificial intelligence to create these hyper-realistic videos or hyper-realistic images or audio clips. And unfortunately, as you say, it's obviously people with a big public persona are very much, you know, in the sort of the crosshairs of this. But even someone who releases a fair amount of sort of video or audio onto social media would potentially be, be targeted.
Yeah, Brian, as we conclude, very briefly, if we may, what can companies do to protect themselves?
So the challenge here is very, very difficult to protect or detect these kinds of deepfakes because of the way they are designed. It's almost impossible to detect them with a naked eye. What we've got to do to defend is not to focus too much on the creation side, but to focus on the delivery side of things. So what organizations need to do is have layered security solutions. You can pick up a lot of the metadata around these deepfakes in things like email and those kinds of delivery mechanisms. And then I think the big one is really to train your users. And this goes not just for companies, but for individuals as well. Be highly, highly skeptical. Don't trust something just because you see it now and it looks very, very real. It's virtually impossible to tell reality from fake. And that's the challenge.
Be very skeptical and vigilant all the time. Thank you very much, Brian Pinnock from Mimecast.